So you're probably asking yourself, did the bankruptcy lawyer finally lose his mind? Why is he wearing shoulder holster? And why does he have more guns with him? Well, before we get into how this relates to bankruptcy, let's go over my gun collection. So I got my Smith& and Wesson 38 here, right? I have this one laser pointer, right? So it's pretty cool. I got this actually because walking my dog, I live in a neighborhood that only has one entrance, so dogs get in from wherever. They get stuck in, and I see on a regular basis. I'm always concerned that some big dog attacks my dog. While I have a taser, I said maybe it's not enough, so I had to get a 38. The reason I got the 38 was because this gun here, and I love this gun. It's called Witness. It's a 45 caliber. I like the name because I've always said it's not going to leave any witnesses behind. I bought that one from a friend of mine. Now this one here, this one's my baby. This is my Ruger P89. Love this gun. It's so smooth. It's perfect. The reason I got this gun was I had just turned 21 years of age, and so the um, the girl I was dating at the time, out of high school, straight out of high school, basically, we used to go to this area, go shooting in Homestead, Florida, where back then there was no homes. And so we would just go out there for shooting for target practice. So when I turned 21, the day I turned 21, I went down to the gun shop and I bought the Ruger P89. A couple of weeks later, there was a gun show in town, and I went and I got the leather shoulder holster here. Now, the reason I got this, I grew up on Miami Vice. Don Johnson had this. He looked awesome when he had this. I mean, just look at this. It's molded perfectly. This goes back to when I was 21. I'm 52 years of age now. But I love this Ruger P89. So it's always behind me. I take it off when I do videos, but for today's video, I need to have it. So again, what does a 38 have to do with bankruptcy and a P89 and a 45 caliber witness? Everything. And this is where we talk about conflicts of law. We all have we're all protected under the Second Amendment, right? We all know what that is. Second Amendments give us the right to bear arms. Where now many states have shifted over to constitutional carry, no more license. I have a license. Apparently, I don't need one anymore, so that's fine. But what does the Constitution have to do with bankruptcy? Well, it's very simple. You know that term where people are concerned, they can't take away my guns, etc. Well, you can't, right? The Constitution allows that. Could there be restrictions? Yes, state law. Now, a state cannot pass a law that says you can't own any guns because remember, we have the U.S. Constitution and we have state laws underneath, then city, county, municipality rules and regulations, laws, etc. They cannot be in conflict because the federal law is the supreme law of the land. Supreme law of the land, Supreme Court, you see. So there we have the connection. So the Second Amendment is clear. We are allowed to have to own firearms. We have that right, but states can come in and put restrictions. They're not saying you can't own a gun, you just can't walk into a casino, or maybe a bar or whatever other restrictions your state might have. The gun-free zones, which could be again the casinos, schools, things like that. But you're allowed to carry, right? Except for those restrictions. But now we're talking bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is federal law. What does that have to do with my guns? It's very simple. Your gun has a value. And because of that, maybe it's not exempt. How many times have we talked about exemptions? Exemptions are what protects you at the end of the day when it comes to filing for bankruptcy. So exemptions vary per state. There are certain states that do have an exemption specifically for guns. I may be wrong. Don't quote me. I didn't research this. I'm just working off the top of prior research. But I think Texas has an exemption where you can own X amount of guns and they can have X amount of value. And there's case law where people, had these guns that were antiques and they were transferred to their friends and all that. Because at the end of the day, this is an asset, right? Maybe it has value, maybe it doesn't, but it's still an asset. My cell phone's an asset. The computer I'm using and the camera, these are all assets that get listed in your bankruptcy petition. So now you jump over to Florida, like I am. How do we handle the issue with guns? It's an asset. Florida doesn't have a specific exemption for guns. So because of that, when you file a bankruptcy petition, Florida or whatever other states, You'll say, I have a P89, I have a witness, I have a Smith& and Wesson 38, I have these guns, whatever else you have, AR-15s, AK-47, it doesn't matter. Whatever you have to list it. And then depending on where the exemptions are, how much you have in all your other personal property, the computers, the watch, all this other stuff, then determines whether you're over exempt. Remember, if you're over exempt, that's the amount that you might have to pay back to the trustee. So I have a friend of mine, retired police officer. One day he posted a photo. It was hilarious photos. He's into motorcycles and guns, and he put all his guns there. There was about 70 to 80 guns there. It was just crazy. It was all, in a circle around him. I'm thinking like a bankruptcy lawyer, and I go, wow, what if we just assign, and I don't know anything about values of guns, but let's say each one was worth $100, then we're talking 7 grand there. And since Florida only has exemptions up to 1,000 if you own a home, 4,000 if you don't, my friend's already $3,000 over the limit. So let's suppose he had to file for bankruptcy. He literally would have. It's probably better that he put every single gun, or just say a gun collection, and then just send that as a photo to the bankruptcy trustee, who then can go and get it appraised if they want. Remember, it's not just guns. We have to include everything else. Our furniture has a value, our stove, our refrigerator. When you look at the bankruptcy petition, it has all that there listed. And it even has a section on firearms. It says, do you own any firearms? So if I'm filing for bankruptcy, I would say yes. There's a part that says sports and hobbies. Well, I did one video where I had, my golf clubs were right next to me. I would have to put that there. But these are issues. There's no right to play golf or whatever. You can play golf, right? That's not in the Constitution. But the Second Amendment does say you have the right to bear arms. But there's the conflict of law conflicts that I'm mentioning, that just because there's a Second Amendment right to own a firearm, once you cross the street, and let's say you're now in bankruptcy court, well, that firearm may not be protected. They're not saying you can't own firearms. They're just saying that, in bankruptcy court, it has a value. And if you're over exempt, you're going to have to give those firearms to the trustee, who will then sell it. And any money that's been able to be recuperated will get, used to pay off the creditors. Now, I'm not going to get into this post. Don't transfer everything. Don't try to be sneaky about it. That only leads to more problems. Best case scenario, they don't approve your bankruptcy case. Worst case scenario, they consider it fraud. And now the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. Trustee's Office, which is separate from the bankruptcy trustee, the U.S. trustee is a government agency, the bankruptcy trustee is a private individual, can now start criminal charges of fraud against you. It's not worth it. If anything, you always have the option of Chapter 13 to file and pay back the value of your guns or motorcycle, whatever it is that you have. All right. So I hope you enjoyed my video today, and I hope you see that there could be situations where we see conflicts, where you're thinking, okay, how could I have a Second Amendment right to bear to bear firearms, but at the same time, you're telling me that I have to pay back the value of those firearms or lose them if I can't afford it? Because again, um, just having the right to have a firearm doesn't mean when you step into bankruptcy court that right covers the actual cost of the firearm. So keep that in mind, just in case this issue presents itself. Okay. So thank you. Be safe out there with firearms. Make sure you do the proper training. Make sure you know the laws that carry in your state, and also the laws if you travel. I have gone cross country on my motorcycle twice. I've done it 3 or 4 times on my truck to go camping, and I was always aware of the laws of each state just in case. All right. So that's always important. You don't want one problem to create a second problem. You surely don't want to be living in Florida and have to hire a lawyer in some other state, Wisconsin or whatever, just because you weren't aware of the laws. All right. So be safe, be careful. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section below. Hit me up on Facebook or Twitter, and I'll respond to you. All right. Take care, everybody.